Hey friend, welcome back to the Created Worthy podcast. I am your host and fellow worthy warrior, Danielle Damrell. On this show, we are creating space for genuine connection by unifying women of all ages, backgrounds, and experiences. So grab your favorite drink and get ready to listen as we take a deep dive into our stories, making sure to honor and protect them in the process. We will also uncover the threads of creative processing that have already played a part in each of our lives. When we know how to utilize this as a skill, we can continue growing into the joy-filled, triumphant women we are created to be. You are created worthy. Hello, welcome back to the Created Worthy podcast. Today, I am joined by another worthy warrior, Dr. Elisabeth Wygant. Dr. Elisabeth is a women's hormone and gut health guru, functional nutrition expert, author, contributor for the Best Holistic Life magazine, speaker, host of the Thrive Mama podcast, wife, and mother of two little ladies. Her specialty is empowering ambitious women who are feeling overwhelmed, fatigued, and short on time to move in confidence, reclaim their libido, and optimize energy levels. She empowers women to unearth their feminine superpower through deep inner healing via embodiment techniques, cycle syncing, and more. Her true passion in life is inspiring women to fill their cup and recognize that it is never too late to invest in themselves and their health. She has been featured in a lot of major publications and podcasts, but what makes her truly special is her heart for helping others. Elisabeth and I had the pleasure of meeting a few months back for the first time in person, and I was immediately taken back by the amount of authenticity that shined from within this woman. She is clear on her mission to love and serve other women so that they can reclaim their femininity and step into alignment in mind, soul, and body. I'm so honored to be joined here by her today. And Elisabeth, thank you so much for joining me on the Created Worthy podcast. I can't wait to hear more about your real life story.
Well, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Way to make me start tearing up. At the very beginning of all this, I thought that was going to happen a little bit later, but here we go. Here
Here's
we
our
are.
welcome. Created Worthy is all about opening yourself up to whatever emotions come out.
That was so sweet. Thank you.
Of course, it is true. I am very excited to be interviewing you. We, like I said, we met a few months back, and through that whole event, we were like, we need to sit down and talk. We need to sit down and talk. We need to sit down and talk. But there was so many moving pieces. And then there was a fire and a hurricane and
All of these things.
all of the things. So we never actually had the opportunity to sit down and I am so excited to just hear about you, hear about your life story, and what brought you to the mission and calling that you're walking in today. So
Absolutely.
just to start, I would love for you to just talk a little bit about where you're from and what your life was like growing up.
Okay, so I'm from Michigan. My life growing up, I would say it was a lot of time spent in nature, which I think has a lot to do with how I wound up where I'm at today. Why I love many different aspects of nature itself, the power of it, the beauty of it, and how it affects us emotionally, spiritually, in our entire body in a holistic sense. We would spend summers camping. We would spend, gosh, I think it would be like a week at a time, just at different little campsites. And we're gone all day. And I just remember those were some of my fondest memories of childhood. In addition to that, I was just talking with my daughter, actually, she's 5. She's a lot like me. Like just this, I don't know how to exactly describe her, but this free spirit that is so independent and confident in herself as a young girl. That's how I felt. And I see a lot of me in her, and it's really beautiful. But we me and my sisters, we would go get lost in the woods, but I would be the one to like take the compass and like intentionally try to like go somewhere where I don't really know 100% where I'm at,
Yeah.
but navigate my way back home. So a lot of our time, I just felt like it was in the woods. It was amongst the trees. It was, sleeping under the stars. It was so beautiful and special.
Oh, I love that. That
Mhm.
reminds me a lot. So I am a Girl Scout leader
Oh, yes.
and I have 9, 6, and 7-year-olds that I'm leading this year. And
Oh,
the thing, we just bridged to brownies this last weekend. So now we are getting more into like camping and exploring. But the thing with Girl
mhm.
Scouts is it is girl led, even at the youngest ages. So they were daisies. We tried to just give them, here are 3 decisions. We did a meeting that was all about camping and just like talking about the basics of camping. But now they are so excited to get out there and like really start exploring. And I
Mhm.
think it's what I love about how you just described your childhood is that there's still this feminine aspect to it, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people think when they think camping or like they think exploring in the woods, like typically I think those stereotypes come in where like that's like what little boys do. Girls are playing with dolls and girls are whatever. But that's like not the truth
No.
for a lot of people in this world. And that's actually a really good thing. And there's so many aspects about like navigating through life like that cognitively helps you to develop in a lot of different ways. And then also just brings that like healthy sense of like, I can navigate through this unknown area and
Mhm.
find safety. Like that is a skill that you have to develop. And for some people it comes a little bit more naturally, but it's just been really cool to see like in all of these different personalities how these like there are some girls who are very prone to like, yes, I'm going to lead. I'm going to be the one who holds the compass. And then there are others who are like, I need you to show me. I'm scared. But they all are like
Yeah.
able to empower each other in that.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's like a really special relationship to have with
Mhm.
young girls. Like to
Yeah.
be a leader and like empower them through that because you're right, there's this stigma with nature and being outside and um getting lost in the woods, using a compass, all these things that's very prone to be like masculine, that idea of it. But really when we think about the feminine, we have to think about the fact that earth is like a mother, right?
Mm.
It holds and supports us, it gives us life
Mm.
by the trees, by nature. So it's something that I don't think gets talked about enough, so I really like that you brought that up. But it is definitely more to me like a feminine aspect, and
Yeah.
being creative and using your imagination and things like that. Like those are the feminine pieces of us that I think we need to fall back into and reclaim as our own.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So going back a little bit, you
Mhm.
grew up in Michigan, and then at what point did you have your doctorate degree? You are Dr. Elisabeth Wygant. Take us back.
Yeah. So my little sister, she has cystic fibrosis. That's something that she was born with. It's a genetic mutation, and she would get very sick. So it affects her respiratory system. It affects her gut, her pancreas. It's a genetic disease that at the time when she was born, they didn't know if she would live past 18 years old. So I was in this environment growing up where I had a younger sibling who was tended to by other healthcare providers, and like the care that they provided was so beautiful, the way that they prioritized her. So I saw that growing up as a young girl, and then I just remember sitting down at the table with our family. We would do it every night, like that was a special time for us. And we'd always have like different conversations. And of course, one of them being, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember when I was in the 5th grade, I said I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I was always intrigued by the brain, right? So I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do, and blah, blah, blah. Well, I get into my teens, and my dad, of course, asks me again at the dinner table, what do you want to be? Like, what are you thinking? And I didn't really know. I just knew I wanted to do something in the healthcare field. Like I was always so drawn to it. I wanted to nurture, I wanted to help others, heal others. So he just brought up the idea of being a pharmacist. And I'm like, that's interesting. I never really thought about it. So I started doing research, and I was like 16 at the time, 15 or 16. Um, and I'm like, well, this is a way where it's kind of like you're a liaison between patient and provider.
Mhm.
I really like the idea of that. So on top of that, the salary was great, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, that's not so bad. I don't have to go to school as long if I wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
Always a benefit.
Always a benefit. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna like feel this out. And I did a job shadowing at an independent pharmacy where I live, and saw multiple factors that intrigued me. Aside from the liaison piece, the impact that the owner and pharmacist had with his community was amazing. Being like a voice, right, for others, being someone that people trusted with not only their health, but different parts of their life, coupled with the fact that he owned the joint, right? So he's an entrepreneur. And I'm like, ooh, business owner, I could do this, right? So I'm like, I could own my own pharmacy. And I wanted to own that particular pharmacy because, one, it's in my hometown. I could be next to my family. Um, I I would be in a community that's already pretty familiar with me. So there's already that established like rapport, right? So I decided at 17 years old, I'm going to go to school to be a pharmacist, and did it.
Yeah.
Did the thing, and made beautiful friendships along the way. Which, like, we're trying to plan a cruise right now, me and my girlfriends. So
Ew.
that'll be fun.
Yes.
um, so that's kind of like the long-winded story of how I became a doctor of pharmacy. I ended up getting asked to come back and work at this independent that I had job shadowed at, and I actually became a pharmacy technician. So I had been in it like almost a decade at the point of when I was going to be graduating, like in the pharmacy space. So I thought I knew the nature of the beast. Um, they offered me the position, and I'm like, this is just manifest destiny, right? My husband and I were like, okay, let's do this, because I saw it as a potential for me to eventually buy them out and own my
Yeah.
own pharmacy, right? Um, and they were my mentors. Him and his wife, they owned it together. They were what I thought of as my mentors, right? They said that I was like a daughter to them, and all these things that were really endearing to me. So I I I was very drawn to that. I was drawn to that.
Like the
I don't know what
family
the right,
oriented.
no, exactly.
Yeah.
And like the even the hours I'm thinking in the future, I'm like, well, I won't have to work till 10 o'clock at night or do any overnights at some other of these retail pharmacies when I eventually have kids. And like, at least I will be able to get out earlier and all these different things. So we decided to move back, and I was going to take this position as the pharmacy manager there. And um, that's kind of like where everything just started kind of getting pieced together for me with my purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to like interject anything here if you've got like
No,
something on your mind.
I
In mind.
I love just giving space for you to just kind of process through like what are those beginning things that led me to where
Yeah,
I'm at currently. So,
yeah.
just as a little recap, you went to school as a pharmacy. You knew at 17 that you wanted to
Mhm.
go be a pharmacist. You wanted to work at this very specific pharmacy in your hometown. You became a pharmacy tech there. Were you also in school at the same time when you were
Yeah,
there?
so yes, yep. So I was, let me think about this. So 17, I job shadowed. At 18, because you couldn't become a tech until you're 18 or older
Okay.
in my state at the time. It probably still holds true today. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you are dealing with some substances that like need to
yeah,
be controlled properly. So it makes
exactly.
sense.
Yes. So I went and I did my test for that and became certified as a pharmacy technician, and then kept that certification all throughout school so I could go back and help or whatever,
Okay.
you know.
Did you go to school away from your hometown then?
I did. So
Okay.
I did pre-farm a couple hours away from where I lived, and then pharmacy school, I actually went to Palm Beach Atlantic University, which is in West Palm. So
Okay, so quite the other side of the country,
yeah,
basically. Yeah.
yeah. So
Wow.
that decision was made in part because we live in such a small town. So I got married when I was 19.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like, think about that. I think about my daughters, I'm like, if my daughters wanted to get married, I'm like, "Ooh,
I know.
at
Yeah, I
19,
I
yikes."
had my first baby at 19, or I had my
Okay,
baby at 19,
yeah,
and even just looking back to that, I'm like, how did I do that? Like, motherhood is a very mature thing to walk into. So, yeah,
yeah,
I can't even I got married at 23, but I can't even
yeah,
imagine, like, navigating through marriage at
yeah.
19. That's wild. While also being in school,
Also in school, yeah, yeah,
having a very driven personality where you're like, I have this desire, I have this dream, I'm going to accomplish it. I'm going to move
mhm,
across the country, I'm going to go to school. Like,
yeah,
that's incredible. It takes a lot
yeah,
of strength and perseverance and resilience to keep going, even,
mhm,
especially that young.
yeah, yeah, thinking about it, it's like, you don't reflect enough on those things, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, you don't celebrate that stuff. It's like, "Oh, dang, I did that." Like, "Oh."
Yeah. Pat on the back
Yeah,
for
like,
sure.
"Okay." Oh gosh, but yeah, we decided that we wanted to just kind of get out of the small town feel and
Yeah.
experience something new. So I started applying to pharmacy schools all over the country. I think I did like one in California, Palm Beach Atlantic in Florida. Um, I had North Carolina, and then over in Chicago, one of their schools there. And I went with Florida. For a few different reasons. Smaller class size. I like the feel, like we both like the energy there. It was fun. It was different. So yeah, we went to West Palm Beach, and I was in school there for 4 years doing my formal training as a pharmacist. So it was um it was really fun. It was a cool time to just like do that,
Yeah. To
you
focus
know.
in on that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
So then after you finished your pharmacy degree, is that when you moved back to your hometown?
yeah, so I had gotten an offer from my from the independent my last year of school, or the year before. It was the year before because I wanted to like make sure they knew what was going on in 2016 for their pharmacy. So they reached out to me beforehand. Um and yeah, like I accepted their offer right away, like,
Yeah.
I mean, basically right away. I think it took like maybe a day to talk about it, but
Yeah. Right
you
away.
know. So yeah, so we once I graduated, we moved back pretty much immediately after. We bought our house sight unseen. My parents did the walkthroughs of houses for us in the area, like community that we wanted to live in. They sent us pictures. They gave us their opinion. So that was interesting. We still live in the same house.
Really?
um,
So you're still in Michigan, in your
Still in
hometown.
Michigan. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Okay. And then at what point did you start your family?
so I got pregnant like a few months after starting that position.
Okay. So really
So
soon into that.
yeah, so I started in August of 2016 and then I got pregnant like in November. So of
Wow.
2016. So it was like immediately after. But that kind of brings me to like the purpose part of all of this.
Yes.
So when I first started my career, I'm like, these are the things that I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to change. Here's what I'm going to implement to streamline things, to make it more efficient, to make it to where I can have more time with my patients, yada, yada, yada. Like I had this idea of what I would be doing and how I would be doing it, but it didn't turn out that way for me.
Yeah. Usually, I feel like
It
when we
usually
make a
doesn't.
plan, it's usually like, and then we're going to get somewhere close through this very
Yeah,
windy. Yeah.
super windy. So gosh, I just remember like being very frustrated right from the very beginning with, again, like the nature of the beast of pharmacy. And in part, it had to do with the fact that I was pulled in so many different directions as the pharmacist, which I really thought I had a handle of what that would be like because I was a tech there. Like
Hmm.
I saw it, but I wasn't the person who was, you know,
Yeah. Making the
the
decisions
end
and
all, right?
right.
Yeah, making the decision. So that was really difficult for me because I couldn't practice the way that I wanted to, which was to be more on the educational side with lifestyle and like how you can utilize your nutrition and movement and these things in your life to help
Yeah.
mitigate some of these disease states, these health conditions. So that was really hard for me. And then also the fact that it's almost like there's no mercy in the profession, unfortunately, in the at least in the community setting. I can't speak to everyone,
Right.
but I know a lot of pharmacists could probably relate, but no breaks. You don't get a second to like shut your brain off, which is incredibly important when you're
Right.
dealing with people's prescriptions. Another part of it was other healthcare providers weren't receptive to me intervening. Not necessarily, I wouldn't even call it intervening. It was trying to protect my patients,
Yeah.
right? And also my license and my technicians and my employer. Like, that's a lot of weight on your shoulders to
Hmm.
carry. So there was that component as well.
Did you learn about any of the functional health, functional medicine in your pharmacy school, or was that something that you were like, I know that this exists, so I need to do
Mm,
my own research and then
yeah.
implement that with your trying to implement that with your patients then?
So no, we did not learn that. However, I had an excellent pre-pharm professor who he was my biology professor, and he spoke so much to nutrition um, that I'm like, this makes perfect sense. And I was all like, I don't, I don't really know where that stems from 100%, but I just knew that eating certain foods made me feel better, right? Like in just just knowing that at a
Yeah.
young age, and then also being very much attuned to how exercise made me feel better and
Mm.
how that could be implemented too into how I practiced. Um, I mean, in pharmacy school, there were like little scattered bits and pieces on like, oh, well, lifestyle changes, nutrition, like very
Very
briefly,
general. Yeah.
very general. I'm like, well, that makes perfect sense, right? So before you prescribe a medication for someone who's, let's say, borderline diabetic, you would educate them on how to eat.
Right.
And you would see their blood glucose levels start to drop and things start to normalize. So that was kind of like that facade of how I thought I would be able to practice and what I thought I would be doing and all of these things. Um, and a very long-winded answer, no, but functional, like
It was
medicine,
not.
functional nutrition, it was not. So it was something that I self-studied a lot of, and it actually had a lot to do with after my second daughter was born. I ended up getting mastitis, which is an infection in, yeah, infection.
Oh my gosh, it hurt.
It
I
hurts
hurt
so
for
bad.
you. So for those that don't know what mastitis is, we definitely have listeners who are not moms yet, or
Mhm.
are moms who did not go through that. Do you want to
Yeah,
explain just a little bit about what mastitis
sure.
is?
Yes. So mastitis is actually where you get a blocked milk duct, and it is incredibly painful because you're not able to get your milk release from your breasts, and then it builds up and your breasts swell, which sometimes leads to women having to be hospitalized, which is what happened to me.
Oh
Um,
no.
it was like it came on out of nowhere. I was at work and I felt like I was getting the flu. I was achy and like could not cope. Like I was sitting down, I had my head down on my desk. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And then I sat there for a minute and I'm like, my boob kind of hurts. And then I realized and I looked, and like usually you'll get like a red patch on your skin. You can tell that way. And I like went off and I looked and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is mastitis. So I called my doctor right away. They sent in an antibiotic for me. I took that. It didn't help. I ended up in the hospital. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm like skipping some things, but maybe I can go back to them. But I was, gosh, I think Olivia, she was only about 8 weeks old at the
Oh
time.
my
She
gosh.
was an itty bitty,
Newborn.
um, yeah, newborn baby, already back to work full time. Like can I swear?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay, sweet. So this is the shit that I had to experience on my own to have my awakening into my purpose. And prior to all of this, just there's some turmoil, I would say, like with my employer and I. Um, with my second, I had requested like 3 months off of maternity leave. We got the schedule all prepared. Everything was set. And then I think I was about 7 months pregnant, and they came to me and they said they couldn't do it. And they cut my leave in half. So I could only have 6 weeks of maternity leave. And yeah. And it's not paid. Like I wasn't getting paid for it.
Not
Oh,
even paid maternity leave.
not even paid. I
Oh
saved up my
my
vacation
gosh.
time, so I didn't take any vacation, right? So I had 2 weeks of vacation saved, so that I could pay myself while I was out. Um, and I was just beside myself because I was like a daughter. I was, you know, these are people that are supposed to be my mentor, and then this is what happens.
Right.
And the things that were said to me for their reasoning were horrendous. I don't know if I can actually like legally say what they had
Right.
communicated with me, but just know it was ugly. And um, at that moment, I realized I was just a number. They didn't care about me like they said they did. And when you tell to me, like when you say someone is like a daughter to you, that's huge.
That
And
is
to be
huge.
right, like I'm like, you would treat your daughter like that?
Yeah. Did they have
And then,
kids too?
yeah. Oh, three girls. All of them have children. And and then I'm thinking, And fast forward to me being in the hospital, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, all of this has happened for a reason, right? Like, this sucks, but this happened for a reason. And I'm like, what I've gone through with my employer, I had traumatic birth experiences with both of my girls. Like, my first was vacuum extracted.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
scary. It was terrifying. I ended up with postpartum anxiety for almost a year. And then with my second, we had to go in the pediatric ICU with her. She was only 10 days old. So, like, almost half of the time that I had off with her, we were in a hospital, or a
Yeah.
third, really, but whatever. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, oh my God, this is happening to me. This is happening all over the freaking world. And women are the life force of the world.
Mm-hmm.
They're treated so poorly.
Yeah. And it's not fair. People have been speaking out about it for ages. I
For a
think
long
maybe
time.
just in the last couple of years are certain countries at least are starting to implement laws that protect women a little bit more, or more paid maternity leave from certain companies
Right?
and stuff, but a lot of times it's only from those really big corporate companies who can afford to
Yeah.
do that. And all of these like independent companies or smaller companies are
Mm,
just they choose to see people as a number a lot of times, and not everyone, right? Like
right.
there
Not
are
every,
there are good people who are running businesses, who really see people as people, but for the most part women do seem to be just like thrown to the wayside. And
yeah.
I think it's very common for people to be like, oh, you had your baby, so like get over it. You have a healthy
Yes.
baby, so get
Yeah.
over it. It's like, are you serious? For me personally, I had a 10-pound baby vaginally. It took me 9 weeks to be able to walk without hurt, like being in severe pain.
Yeah.
9 weeks. Like, and my experience is not uncommon. Women get mastitis, unfortunately, every single day, and there's pretty much nothing you can do to prevent it.
Hmm.
Like, that
Yeah.
this is just a part of being a woman, especially a mother. So why
Mother.
are we
Yeah.
not honoring moms? Like every single person on this planet has been born through a woman.
Right. Like,
What in
that's
the what
huge.
is the disconnect here?
I know.
I'm so
I know.
sorry that that was how you were treated and that was your experience, because it's not fair. And I'm
Mhm.
so grateful that you're sharing it, because I think there's probably quite a few women who will listen to this podcast who will be like, "Yep, I
Yeah.
remember. I remember
Yeah.
being treated like absolute bullshit
Hmm.
because I had a baby." And it's like
So,
shameful, like it's shaming people for becoming a mother
yeah,
and shaming
100%.
women for being even experiencing any kind of joy for
Mhm.
getting pregnant, and then to not get that promotion, and then to lose your baby, which is such a hard and terrible experience to go through in itself. But then for them to be like, here's a little, like, here you go. Like, I'm sure
Yeah.
in their minds they were like, oh, here, like, this is better for all of us now.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
instead, that's just like
Demeaning.
confirming, yeah,
Hmm.
demeaning and confirming what she probably was already feeling.
Hmm. Yeah. And I know there's millions, I'm sure millions upon millions of stories like this. And I just, I was able to reflect in my hospital stay on this very fact, but it didn't really, I knew that these things were going on, but it wasn't until I became a mother and had to experience my own struggles, right? With that component, with my own health, that it was like, again, like an awakening. Like, I woke up. I was in this zombie state, almost like on autopilot,
Yeah.
you know? And in the meantime, they're texting me like, "Hey, when are you going to be back?" So, I know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I only spent a day there because I was scared.
In the hospital, you only spent a
Mhm.
day?
Yeah, I probably should have been there longer, but I didn't.
So
I,
you
wa-
went,
I
so was it in the hospital that you had this awakening and then you went
Mhm.
back to work? And how long were you there before you were like, enough is enough?
Mm, well, really what ended up happening was when when they had the conversation with me about reducing my maternity leave, I immediately called my husband, and he's like, try not to show how angry you are, because there's cameras in there. He's like, try not to show how angry you are. It's like, keep it together for the rest of the day and we'll talk when you get home. And at that point, we had made a decision. I was also significantly in student loan debt, like 300 something $1,000 in student loan debt. So we made it a point to get out of student loan debt as quickly as possible, in part because they were being so weird towards me that we didn't trust them any longer. And in addition to that, like, who wants that kind of debt in their life?
Yeah.
So
That in itself is a lot of weight to bear.
yeah, yeah. So it was like when you have that significant level of debt in your life, it literally feels like you're stuck. So we ended up like, that was kind of like that moment of, okay, I don't have to be here forever once I get out of debt. We have options. There's more freedom in that financially for us. Um, so it was kind of like at that point. And then my hospital stay, I would say, was like, all right, I need to empower women. I need to guide them. I need to help them heal. How do I do it? So that was that light bulb moment, right? And we ended up paying off my debt, like, oh gosh, it wasn't that long after we made that decision. It was less than a year later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How did you
So
do that?
my husband is excellent with finances. Like, I think he's a genius with it. It's just
Yeah.
me. But we had put all of the money that I made every single month towards my loans. And then we ended up refinancing our house and using the money that we got from that to help pay off. So we paid it off that way. And then once we got that chunk of change, we clicked the button and like submitted our final payment. It was like $80,000 for that final payment or something crazy like that. I
Wow.
don't really remember. I'm trying to remember like exactly how much it was. It was more than
A
that.
lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot. So yeah, we were very diligent about it because we together knew that where I was at wasn't sustainable. It wasn't healthy. So that was like our goal,
Yeah.
and we did it. And we are both very ambitious, very goal oriented
I love
people.
that.
So that's how we did it. But
So
um
at this point, where you're at now is
mhm,
you do not work for an independent pharmacy, as far as I know,
no.
and you are fully serving women
Mhm,
every day
mhm,
to
mhm.
help them to get into alignment and unearth their feminine superpower.
Yes.
And so yeah, take us through that journey of from going into a independent pharmacy every day to, I
Mhm.
think, working from home, starting your own
Yeah,
business,
yeah.
and really putting your feet to the, is it feet to the
To the
floor, gun?
pavement. Yeah,
Yeah, something, running towards
yeah.
your actual purpose and living in
Mhm.
alignment for yourself.
Yeah. So, um, gosh, I started my business as a side hustle it's a few years ago now. And then I was actually let go in October of 21.
Okay, so you still
Um,
worked there for a couple years
y-
after getting mastitis.
yeah, yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Because I was trying to get my business to a point where it was replacing my income at the pharmacy. But for me, it was very difficult to navigate my career, a side hustle, motherhood, being a wife. Like,
Right.
that's a lot.
It is a lot. Like a lot of people make it look really simple and easy, but truly
It's not.
it's like more than a balancing act. Like you've got all your limbs and your feet and your fingers and your toes and your head.
Mhm.
We're like we're just
Eyelashes, hair, like it's
all
all.
of it. Where everything's holding something up.
Yes. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'll say about that. And then so I fell into full-time entrepreneurship kind of on accident. I had planned to leave um a few months like after the fact, like from when they let me go, because we felt good and like how much we saved and all these things, right? So I was like, okay, well, it is what it is. And then just fell into full-time entrepreneurship. And I will tell you, it was not a walk in the park.
Mhm.
There is a lot of I'm trying to find the right words. So I was talking to Melissa about this the other day. For those who are like, who's Melissa?
Yeah.
Melissa Hanal. She's amazing. She's
Google her. You'll find all of her
just Google
things.
her.
She's incredible. We both
Yeah.
love her. Shout
Yes.
out to
So
Melissa.
shout out to Melissa. So talking with her and I was telling her, I'm like, I just kind of felt like I was floundering and didn't really know what to do with my time. How do I strategically like make my business the way that I want it? Like to me, I have very big goals for my business, but I wasn't really getting there. And she explained it to me. She's like, well, you went from a very structured life from the time you're a child to, all the way through your career to now you have all of this free time. So you're going from this very masculine, your day is structured, to this very like feminine, which are two polar opposites. You
Like
need to have
flow
balance.
state. Yeah.
Flow, yeah. Like I'm like, what the heck do I do with my time? Do I do content? Do I do DMs? How do I do this strategically?
Mhm.
And so I was telling her I was like a little bit like floundering. So what really is the key factor in all of this is you have to have a support system and you have to have someone guiding you through it that has been through it before
Yep.
in order to be successful in your business, whatever that may look like for you.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
so
it's hugely important. And
huge.
honestly, entrepreneurship in itself can be very lonely. Like
Yeah.
you feel like you're in it alone, especially if you're like the sole one running the company. And for the most part, people start companies by themselves. It takes years and years to get to the point. Well, hopefully you can do it faster. But for me, it took
Right.
years and years to get to the point where I could even like hire a podcast editor, someone
Right.
to help me with something in my business so that it wasn't entirely on me. Like
Mhm.
that's usually the journey for a lot of us. And so it's so easy to just feel like you're floundering, like you said, and
Yeah.
swimming in this sea of like, there are so many tasks and nothing is structured. And now I have to create this structure when
Yep.
previously it's been created for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, it's sexy. Entrepreneurship
Sexy.
is sexy, but like you've got to have the structure of the strategy to implement and then to be able to hit the goals that you want to hit. Mm.
And that actually reminds me of your favorite quote that you shared with me, which is that everything is possible. Nothing is innately out of reach, which is a quote by Amanda Francis.
Mhm.
And I think it really perfectly describes like the season I think that you're walking into right now and that you've probably been walking through over this last year in 2022 of like,
Mhm.
okay, I know that this is possible. I know that I can make this a full-time income and that I can create the structure I need to serve in the way that I feel called to serve.
Mhm.
It's not out of reach.
Right.
It just takes strategic action. to
Yep.
make that possible.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that. So tell me a little bit about what you are offering right now. Like what you're working with women on a one-on-one basis or in a group setting. How are you helping and serving women to get into alignment in this season?
Yeah, sure. So I have a little bit of both. So I have a group program called Flourish, and that's a 6-month program where I walk you through balancing your hormones, utilizing nutrition as the primary focus. I take you from mindset work all the way down into awakening your divine feminine being, which is like so amazing to be able to witness because you don't even know that it's lost
Yeah.
until you get there. So it is a beautiful 6-month program with coaching with me. We do weekly calls for mindset. You have access to hours worth of content and modules to really educate you on your body, all about body literacy, and really how to nourish yourself the way that nature intended, and feel freaking fantastic by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that group program, and then I also do one-on-one work where you get everything that's found in Flourish, plus I do in-home lab testing as well. So we do 3 different snapshots of what's going on internally with your body. So I look at hormone health, gut health, and your any nutrient depletions that you might be experiencing um, at month 1, month 6, and then month 12. And that really gives us that beautiful inside scoop as to your progress that you're making, where can we make improvements, and really tailor your care to your needs, which
Yeah.
is just so amazing too. So those are like the 2 different options that I've got going on right now.
I love that. So what advice would you give to someone who is feeling completely stuck or overwhelmed? Um, and they might be in the beginning phases of like, I know that I need to take my health and wellness more seriously, or
Mhm.
I'm interested in this feminine thing, but I am very confused. Like, what advice would you give to someone who is just stuck?
Yeah. So I would say, and this is from personal experience, for me, I was stuck with my health. Um, I had to navigate the functional nutrition space by myself. Um, and that's how I fell into it, right? So after I had mastitis, I had these other health issues caused by the antibiotics with my gut health. And like, I really had to heal myself. But I did feel a little lost, like a little bit like, whoa, what the heck, and overwhelmed. And
Mm.
that's coming from someone who's a health professional.
Yeah.
So what I ended up actually doing was focusing on my mindset
Okay.
and growing myself spiritually. And that really helped me in getting committed to the changes that I wanted to make nutritionally. Um, so I would say, like, if you are really unsure, pick up a pen and paper and just start writing.
Yeah.
That's a
Writing.
great way to just let things go or get things out,
I've
see
heard
them.
it called a gateway to your subconscious.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know if I have shared with you, but I have started offering creative processing workshops. Have I told you about my definition of creative processing?
I believe so, but I want you to remind me.
Okay, so creative processing is a tool that we can all use to activate our creative minds to process through a certain intention. The most powerful way to activate your creative mind, pretty much across the board, whether you're a creative or a more analytical person, is through writing. It's not
Mhm.
always the thing that we want to do, but it's the most powerful way to just take that deep dive into your subconscious. So,
Mm.
what I've started doing is offering these creative processing workshops where I guide people through 3 separate prompts. And the goal is that you start to connect with yourself a little bit more. You open that gateway, and then you can take the next strategic action in your life, whether that be scheduling a doctor appointment. It could be as simple as just
Mhm.
scheduling a doctor's appointment,
Yes.
or it could be maybe I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna go for a walk around the block. But when we get stuck and we're spiraling, we're mentally and emotionally overwhelmed, it feels like there's nothing that you can do. And
Yeah.
so one of the things I think last year that I saw through working with many, 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 many women who just kept coming to me and saying, Danielle, I feel so stuck. And specifically, honestly, a lot of them were pharmacists, still
Mm,
in full-time pharmacy, but hoping
yeah.
to open their own functional medicine practices. And they were like, I'm so overwhelmed. I have like so much on my plate. They felt exactly like you were describing, like that constantly people are needing from them. There's no time for them to breathe. There's no time for them to rest. And so I went on this really for the last 3 years. I've been on this journey of discovering the power of creative processing
Mm,
for myself in my own healing journey. And then I realized this is bigger than me. This is
yeah.
a tool, a tangible tool, because there's lots of coping skills and tools out there. And I've been in therapy for 12 years. So I have a list of all of these coping skills, but I needed something that was a tangible action that I could
Yep.
feel grounded and then move forward by the end of it. And so I
Mhm.
started harnessing the power of intention paired with creativity. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can breathe. I can take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I can dream. I can have a hope for a better future. I can feel like I have something to live for. Like
Mhm.
even at that very basic level, like I can conquer my anxiety in this very moment and
Yep.
combat it with joy in this very tangible action. And so one of the pre-interview questions that I ask all of my guests is, what's your creative processing method? And I know that you probably don't know what creative processing is. So I'm always just like, I'm going to throw that out there and see what they said. And what you said was journaling and meditation. And I'm
Mhm.
like, yep, those are two incredibly powerful creative processing methods.
Yes.
So I would love to hear from you what it looks like for you to like set the scene, and then also, do you typically pair your journaling or your meditation sessions with an intention going into it, or do you kind of discover that in the process?
So I typically will have an intention set for my meditation. It's something that I learned through hypnobreath work, where it kind of just helps guide you along the journey. However, what I have found is you may have this intention, but something else even more profound or powerful will actually come up.
Hmm.
And that to me is like huge. So what I'll do is I'll write out my intention. I will make sure like I have that in my mind when I get into meditation. And then once I'm done with my meditation, I write out everything that happened during that.
That
And
came up.
yeah, like what I felt, what I saw, like using your senses really to activate your subconscious
Mhm.
and kind of like ignite what's within you that isn't necessarily coming up to the surface when you're in autopilot, when you're in
Yeah.
life, but so that has been really powerful for me. And it's been a great way to heal because just everything that I had gone through, um, it was definitely like traumatizing,
Yeah.
honestly,
I think it's a way for you to reclaim your power.
for sure.
Yeah.
It
Because
absolutely
you're
is.
able to um, identify what you have control over versus what you don't have control over, and
Mhm.
release what you don't. and take
Mhm.
control of what you do and get that empowerment to take that one little step. I think I love having these conversations, and I have them with every guest on Created Worthy, because what I realized is that every single person already engages in creative processing in one sense or another.
Mhm.
But we don't always have like a term for it. And it's one of those, if you know better, then you can do better types of things.
Mhm.
And if you have a phrase that you're like, oh, I'm feeling really anxious or stressed right now, and I know that it's about this certain thing, or sometimes you don't always know, but your intention is to process your anxiety, then
Mhm.
you can get to that root cause so that you can take that next step. I'm calling this like a whole new way to practice self-care.
Yeah.
It's really slowing down, connect with yourself deeply. It doesn't have to take hours and hours and hours.
Right.
It can. And if that's what your body and your mind needs, then you can honor that. But
Mhm.
you can also just take 15 minutes, or you can come to a creative processing workshop once a month
Yeah.
and in community go through these prompts where every month we have a different so we have a different like emotional block or creative
Mm.
block that we face. This month is the first real intention. So we've got processing you, which is kind of like the first step to an introduction to creative processing, where I just take them through like, this is what creative processing is, this is what it looks like to use it in action. And
Mhm.
we just process who you are and what makes you special, and like the very foundations of self-love, and how self-love is a practice, it's not a destination.
Yeah.
And it's all the basics, but the first topic that we're going through is processing play, because as
Mm.
adults we tend to think that play is for children, but
Yeah.
play is the foundation of creativity. And
Yep.
so being able to identify ways in which you are giving yourself permission to play unlocks your potential for the transformative power of creative processing, which
Mhm.
I think is just so much of what you are doing as well with your clients.
Yeah.
Um, but just, yeah, I just love talking about this because it's like
Yes.
that really intentional act of like connecting with yourself so that you can have an immediate effect psychologically, mentally,
Mhm.
physically. We don't have to live in that state of constant chaos and confusion. We
Right.
really do have ways to get out of that. We just have to
Yeah.
show up. We have to
Yeah.
do a little bit of the work and be willing to see ourselves as worthy enough to do that. So,
Mhm. It's so true. Very true.
well, before we close up today, just tell me a little bit about what's next in your life and business and where listeners can connect with you.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually have a free 5-day masterclass coming up called the Aligned Woman Masterclass. And it is to tame your hormones and thrive in all phases of life. I'm going to walk you through utilizing nutrition to balance your hormones. And we take this very overwhelming, like, culture of diet, which is a swear word in my book. I don't like that word.
As it should be.
Um, mhm, and simplify it to where it's easy to follow, you can implement, and you can get results like within a week, right? So I'm going to walk you through that, but then also blend together the techniques that I teach in my group program Flourish. So I'm going to give you kind of like a sneak peek into how to optimize your hormones through each phase of your cycle. And if you're someone who doesn't really have an idea of where you're at in your cycle, or if you have PCOS, endometriosis, if you are someone who is perimenopausal, menopausal, or postmenopausal, you're going to learn how to harness the power of the moon. So
Wow.
that is going to be my week. Let me get you a date. Let me just double check my date because I don't want to get it wrong.
Yes. And
But
we will have a link in the show notes for people to register as well.
yes. So we are looking at the week of March 6th for my masterclass, which I'm super duper pumped about. I love hosting. And really, like, when I get to host it, it's not only something that changes the lives of the women that are participating. But to me, I grow each time I do it. And I'm just always so humbled and honored to serve women that way. So that is what's going on in the very near
So
future.
exciting.
Yes, super pumped about that. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Dr. Elisabeth Wygant, Elizabeth with an S. We can get links to that though, and you
Yes.
can pull it up that way.
All of her links
All
will
of the
be in the show
things.
notes. Yeah.
I am on Instagram and Facebook. Elizabeth Wygant Wellness is my handle, so you can follow me there too. But I like the LinkedIn platform. It's fun.
Yes. And Melissa is the LinkedIn guru, so she is
Yeah.
teaching you all of the ways to harness the power of LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Well, I am so grateful to have spent some time with you here today and for your courage and vulnerability to share your story. Keep shining, living your truth, and inspiring other women to live wholly in mind, spirit, and body. You, my friend, are created worthy. Thanks for tuning in to the Created Worthy podcast. If anything in today's show resonated with you, can you do me a huge favor and go leave a 5-star review? This helps more listeners find the show, and it also expands the impact, messages, and stories that are shared here. All the links and guest information are in the show notes. If you're on social media, I want to personally invite you to continue the conversations about these important topics that we're talking about. You can find Created Worthy on both Instagram and Facebook by just typing in Created Worthy Podcast. Can't wait to talk to you soon, friend. And don't forget, you are created worthy.